As you may have noticed, Mrs. Kennedy did not enter with the president. So far, we have no indication of where she may be. And I can tell you from where we are standing, there are quite a few ladies who appear to be quite disappointed that Mrs. Kennedy is not here. I am sure that if she does not appear, the president will explain the reason for her absence. But we think perhaps the president was delayed. He may have changed his suit coat when he entered the building from the parking lot appearance across the street. He was quite damp from the rain. He was the only member of the official party that did not wear a raincoat. But as he walked by me here, I noticed that his coat was dry and there were no rain spots on it, so he may have gone to his suite to change the suit coat.
Please. The invocation will be given by Monsignor Vincent J. Wolfe. Monsignor Wolfe. O eternal God, Father of these United States of America, we as a nation are grateful for our noble destiny. From the day of our initial consecration to Thee, we have relied upon Thine omnipotent providence, and under Thy protection, we are now before the world a beacon of hope, a shrine of liberty and justice for all. Our founding fathers proclaimed Thee Creator, and by that fact, our country promotes for each resident a liberty most absolute and an equality most entire. O God of might and wisdom, with Thy Spirit of counsel and fortitude, assist our President of the United States that his administration will be useful and fruitful for the common good of Thy people over whom he presides. And, O God, may we with him be Thine instruments in establishing the divine harmony throughout the world, so that Thy sons and daughters from one end of the earth to the other may be free to join in the glorious hymn of worship. Glory be to Thee, O God, in the highest, and on earth, peace. Now, O God, the giver of good gifts, we thank Thee for the food which Thou hast given for the nourishment of our bodies, the temples of our souls, made to Thine image and likeness. Amen. Be seated, please.
There's a lull in the program here as the next item on the agenda is straightened out. We still have no word from Secret Service men or White House aides as to why Mrs. Kennedy is not present at the breakfast. The man who introduced Monsignor Wolf is Raymond Buck, president of the Fort Worth Chamber of Commerce. If everything goes according to schedule, the next item on the program will be a rendition by the Texas Boys Choir. In a situation like this, the best a reporter can do is guess sometimes, but we've been watching the head table closely, and so far there's been no coffee placed at Mrs. Kennedy's spot at the table, and no breakfast has been set down. So this indicates that she will not appear. Now, once again, here's Mr. Buck.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's wonderful to see you all here this morning, and we now are going to have the pleasure of hearing from Fort Worth's finest, the Texas Boys Choir.
The eyes of Texas are upon you for the livelong day. The eyes of Texas are upon you. You cannot get away. Do not think you can escape them at night or early in the morn. The eyes of Texas are upon you. Till Gabriel blows his horn.
It's strange how in situations like this, a relatively minor character can become so important. Quite a few people in the ballroom are watching the maitre d'. He's the short man that's walking back and forth behind the head table. He put a plate in front of Vice President Johnson. He put one in front of Kennedy, and quite a few people noted that so far there is no plate at the place of Mrs. Kennedy. Now he's pouring coffee. As he moves down the line again, he did not stop at Mrs. Kennedy's place.
There was a noble ranger, his name was Mustang Gray. He left his home in Butter, youth went ranging far away, went ranging far away. He never sleep within a tent, no comforts would he know, but like a brave old Texie, at a ranging he would go, a ranging he would go. Oh, Mustang Gray was the hero of his day. No more the Indian will he fight, for he's heard his last maroon, having joined another troop, where they haven't any enemies to fight. When Texas was invaded, they captured Mustang Gray. He wore the yoke of bondage through the streets of Monterey, the streets of Monterey. Jason door and did him on his way, and did him on his way. Oh, Mustang Gray was the hero of his day. No more the torrents will he cry, for he's earned his elder rank, and he's ranging in a land where they haven't any enemies to fight. And when this veteran's life was spent in Rhodes, his last command to bury him on Texas soil beside the Rio Grande, beside the Rio Grande. And there the lovely traveler.
We've just received word from one of the president's aides that Mrs. Kennedy is on her way down, and apparently this is what's caused the delay, because there are additional selections by the Texas Boys Choir not scheduled for the program. And as far as we can determine, she will enter the same way the president did, through the kitchen door that you see, for security reasons. 1 minute ago we were told she'd be down in 30 seconds, so as you can see, we are just standing by until she arrives.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct privilege to introduce or to present to you the guests at the head table, leaving for the moment those that you'll hear from later. First of all, it is a personal pleasure for me to present the most gallant, able Texan of them all, one who has done so much for Texas and America, the distinguished Vice President of the United States, Lyndon B. Johnson. And his lovely wife, companion, Lady Bird. Next, we have the pleasure of presenting Fort Worth's own, the talented Governor of Texas, Governor John B. Connally. And his sweet wife, Nellie. We're honored to have with us today the distinguished and able senior citizen of Texas, Senator Ralph W. Yarborough. We have had many able congressmen from this district, none of which have ever surpassed in dedication, loyalty, and capability to country and to district the Honorable Jim Wright. Next, we have the distinguished West Texan, the people's lawyer, Attorney General Wagner Carr. And the attractive Mrs. Carr. Guiding our House of Representatives with a firm hand and with great success is our Speaker, Byron Tunnell. and his wife, Mrs. Tonnell. Near here on my left, the able, dedicated, hard-working mayor of this vibrant and vigorous city, who is giving us a tremendous administration as mayor, Mayor Baird H. Friedman. And his wife, Mrs. Friedman. Only one county in the United States, I have been told, is free of debt, Mr. President, and that is Tarrant County. Represented here this morning by our County Judge Marvin B. Simpson, Jr. and Mrs. Simpson. Assisting, substituting at times for our mayor, we have a very fine Mayor Pro Tem, been a leader here in political and business circles for many years, Willard Barr. And Mrs. Barr. In the state Senate, we are ably and vigorously represented by our Senator Don Kennard. And Mrs. Kennard. In the Chamber of Commerce, my work has been made easy by the able assistance of the vice presidents and the staff, directors, members. Here this morning it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Marion L. Hicks, Vice President of the Chamber of Commerce, and General Dynamics, and Mrs. Hicks. Also of tremendous value, assistance to the Chamber of Commerce the last 2 years has been our Vice President Jack W. Melcher of Lennox Manufacturing Company, and Mrs. Melcher. The fellow who really does the hard work at the Chamber of Commerce, and who I believe is, well, he's finally come up to take his seat. He's been out there working. Is our very talented Milton A. Atkinson, Vice President and General Manager. And Mrs. Atkinson. The Central Trades Council and the Building and Construction Trades are ably represented here in Fort Worth by Mr. O.C. Yancey, President of Central Trades Council, and Mrs. Yancey. Completes the introductions, except for those who have spoken or will speak later. Now is an event that I know all of you have been waiting for. They know what I mean.
As you can tell from the reaction, that's Mrs. Kennedy coming in. This She's been standing outside in the kitchen waiting for the introduction of the guests at the head table to be completed. Now she is moving up to the front of the ballroom, mounting the dais. For the ladies in the audience, she's wearing a pink outfit trimmed in black. If I knew more about it, I'd tell you the kind of material. It looks like a nubby material, wool of some type. And with the chilly weather outside today, this is probably very appropriate. There's some very happy women here today who made the trip down.
Ladies and gentlemen, I proudly present the President of the United States.
I know now why everyone in Texas, Fort Worth, is so thin. I've gotten up and down about 9 times. This is what you do every morning. Mr. Buck, Mr. Vice President, Governor Conley, Senator Yarborough, Jim Wright, members of the congressional delegation, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Attorney General, ladies and gentlemen. 2 years ago, I said that, introduced myself in Paris by saying that I was the man who had accompanied Mrs. Kennedy to Paris. I'm getting somewhat that same sensation as I travel around Texas. Nobody wonders what Lyndon and I wear, but I'm glad to be here in Jim Wright City. About 35 years ago, a congressman from California, just been elected, received a letter from an irate constituent which said, during your campaign you promised to have the Sierra Madre Mountains reforested. You've been in office for 1 month and you haven't done so. Well, no one in Fort Worth has been that unreasonable, but in some ways he has had the Sierra Madre Mountains reforested. And here in Fort Worth, he's contributed to its growth. He speaks for Fort Worth. He speaks for the country. And I don't know any city that's better represented in the Congress of the United States than Fort Worth. And if there are any Democrats here this morning, I'm sure you won't hold that against them. 3 years ago, last September, I came here on the Vice President and spoke at Burke Burnett Park. And I called in that speech for a national security policy and a national security system which was second to none. A position which said not first but, if, when, and how, but first. That city responded to that call as it has through its history. And we have been putting that pledge into practice ever since. And I want to say a word about that pledge here in Fort Worth, which understands national defense and its importance to the security of the United States. During the days of the Indian War, this city was a fort. During the days of World War I, even before the United States got into the war, Royal Canadian Air Force pilots were training here. During the days of World War II, the great Liberator bombers, on which my brother flew with his co-pilot from this city, were produced here. First non-stop flight around the world took off and returned here in a plane built in factories here. The first truly intercontinental bomber, the B-36, was produced here. The B-58, which is the finest weapon system in the world today, which it demonstrated most recently in flying from Tokyo to London with an average speed of nearly 1,000 miles per hour, is a Fort Worth project. The Iroquois helicopter from Fort Worth is a mainstay in our fight against the guerrillas in South Vietnam. The transportation of crews between our missile sites is done in planes produced here in Fort Worth. So wherever the confrontation may occur, and in the last 3 years it's occurred at least 3 occasions, in Laos, in Berlin, and in Cuba, and it will again, wherever it occurs, the products of Fort Worth and the men of Fort Worth provide us with a sense of security. And in the not too distant future, a new Fort Worth product. And I'm glad that there was a table separating Mr. Hicks and myself, a new Fort Worth product. The TFX, Tactical Fighter Experimental. Nobody knows what those words mean, but that's what they mean. Tactical Fighter Experimental will serve the forces of freedom and will be the #1 airplane in the world today. There's been a good deal of discussion of the long and hard-fought competition to win the TFX contract, but very little discussion about what this plane will do. It will be the first operational aircraft ever produced that can literally spread its wings through the air. It will thus give us a single plane capable of carrying out missions of speed as well as distance, able to fly very far in one form or very fast in another. It can take off from rugged, short airstrips, enormously increasing the Air Force's ability to participate in limited wars. The same basic plane will serve the Navy's carriers, saving the taxpayers at least $1 billion in cost if they built separate planes for the Navy and the Air Force. The government of Australia, by purchasing $125 million of TFX planes before they are even off the drawing boards, has already testified to the merit of this plane, and at the same time, it's confident in the ability of Fort Worth to meet its schedule. In all these ways, the success of our national defense depends upon this city in the western United States, 10,000 miles from Vietnam, 5,000 or 6,000 miles from Berlin, thousands of miles from trouble spots in Latin America and Africa or the Middle East. And yet Fort Worth and what it does and what it produces participates in all these great historic events. Texas as a whole and Fort Worth bear particular responsibility for this national defense effort. For military procurement in this state totals nearly $1.25 billion, fifth highest among all the states of the Union. There are more military personnel on active duty in this state than any in the nation save one. And it's not Massachusetts. Any in the nation save one with a combined military-civilian defense payroll of well over $1 billion. I don't recite these for any partisan purpose. They're the result of American determination to be second to none. And as a result of the effort which this country has made in the last 3 years, we are second to none. In the past 3 years, we have increased the defense budget of the United States by over 20%, increased the program of acquisition for Polaris submarines from 24 to 41, increased our Minuteman missile purchase program by more than 75%, doubled the number of strategic bombers and missiles on alert, doubled the number of nuclear weapons available in the strategic alert forces, increased the tactical nuclear forces deployed in Western Europe by over 60%, added 5 combat-ready divisions to the armies of the United States and 5 tactical fighter wings to the Air Force of the United States, increased our strategic airlift capability by 75%, and increased our special counterinsurgency forces which are engaged now in South Vietnam by 600%. I hope those who want a strong America and place it on some signs will also place those figures next to it. This is not an easy effort. This requires sacrifice by the people of the United States. But this is a very dangerous and uncertain world. As I said earlier, on 3 occasions in the last 3 years, the United States has had a direct confrontation. No one can say when it will come again. No one expects that our life will be easy. Certainly not in this decade, and perhaps not in this century. But we should realize what a burden and responsibility the people of the United States have borne for so many years. Here, a country which lived in isolation, divided and protected by the Atlantic and the Pacific, uninterested in the struggles of the world around it. Here, in the short space of 18 years after the Second World War, we put ourselves by our own will and by necessity into defensive alliances with countries all around the globe. Without the United States, South Vietnam would collapse overnight. Without the United States, the SEATO alliance would collapse overnight. Without the United States, the CENTO alliance would collapse overnight. Without the United States, there would be no NATO, and gradually Europe would drift into neutralism and indifference. Without the effort of the United States and the Alliance for Progress, the communist advance onto the mainland of South America would long ago have taken place. So this country, which desires only to be free, which desires to be secure, which desires to live at peace for 18 years under 3 different administrations, has borne more than its share of the burden, has stood watch for more than its number of years. I don't think that we are fatigued or tired. We would like to live as we once lived, but history will not permit it. The communist balance of power is still strong. The balance of power is still on the side of freedom. We are still the keystone and the arch of freedom, and I think we will continue to do as we have done in our past, our duty, and the people of Texas will be in the lead. So I'm glad to come. I'm glad to come to this state which has played such a significant role in so many efforts in this century, and to say that here in Fort Worth, you people will be playing a major role in the maintenance of the security of the United States for the next 10 years. I'm confident, as I look to the future, that our chances for security, our chances for peace, are better than they've been in the past. And the reason is because we're stronger. And with that strength is a determination to not only maintain the peace, but also the vital interests of the United States. To that great cause, Texas and the United States are committed. Thank you.
Mr. President, your visit with us in Fort Worth today, the things you have said have refreshed and renewed our appreciation of your great leadership and courage. You have brought rain to moisten our pastures and our fields. You have brought sunshine in our hearts. we know that you don't wear a hat. We couldn't let you leave Fort Worth without providing you with some protection against the rain.
I'll put it on in the White House on Monday. If you'll come up there, you'll have a chance to see it there.
That Texas hat is presented to you by Washer Brothers, one of the oldest men's stores in Texas. And to protect you against local enemies in the manner that you are protecting this nation against our foreign enemies, and to keep the rattlesnakes on Vice President Johnson's ranch from striking you, we want to present this pair of boots. We won't ask you to put them on. Here. The boots are presented by Mr. John Justin, former mayor of Fort Worth, manufacturer of the most walked-about boots in the world. And Mrs. Kennedy, as you ride to the hounds or walk to the rattlesnakes, we want you to have protection too. Before the benediction, I'd like to present Mrs. Granville Walker, the wife of Dr. Granville Walker, who will pronounce the benediction. Mrs. Granville Walker. After Dr. Walker gives a benediction, we ask that you please remain seated until the President and Mrs. Kennedy have made their exit. Dr. Granville Walker.
Let us be in the spirit of prayer. The Lord bless all nations with a desire for peace. The Lord bless our own beloved nation with rectitude and prosperity, and grant us to achieve justice for all within it. The Lord bless our President and all in places of responsibility with wisdom and with health equal to their tasks. And now the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord cause his face to shine upon you and give you peace both now and forever. Amen.
Wonderful. Certainly appreciate it.
This has been the presidential breakfast from the Hotel Texas in Fort Worth. Now the presidential party will leave Fort Worth, go to Dallas, where this afternoon he will address a crowd at the Trade Mart. This program has been an origination of the KTVT remote facilities.